is what we have discussed. Only the topic of delegates. What are the uh, significant features that we try to understand. First of all, they are not the reference type which you find in C++ and other OOPS compliant programming languages, because they basically refer the objects. But here, delegates are something special kind of reference types which actually work for methods. Okay, so these are specially meant for to parallelly invoke multiple methods or a single method. So that is the main significance of this delegate implementation. And whenever you are declaring a delegate, initially it will not be having any method body. Then delegates are type safe, object oriented, and they are secure. A delegate is a function pointer that allows you to reference a method. Okay, so this is the actual fundamental theoretical understanding of what is a particular delegate. This is nothing but a function pointer, and basically it can refer only to methods, not the objects. Why? Because if it is referring to an object actually, so class instantiated object, then it becomes a class. But it's not the case. Delegate is a not a class-based instantiation. It's a method-based invocation that we can do in our programming implementations. Then they can safely encapsulate some methods. So these are the some common fundamentals of this delegate. Now, with an example, we will try to understand uh, how to how to create a basic delegate. Okay, so before that, there is one more definition also we had seen in the last lecture. On the basis of the delegates only, events can be created. So delegates, first of all, you have to write, and after creating a delegate only, you can write events on top of this delegate. Okay, so that thing we have discussed in the last class. And with an example, we will see and understand, because it is somewhat complicated to understand the events creation as well as delegate implementation theoretically. After some practical trying it out, you must be understanding uh, in like 90, at least 90% of the concept. So this is an example. We have, suppose this uh, suppose this part I am not using as of now. So rest of everything is nothing but a function definition. Okay, so this is entirely function definition. Only thing that we are attaching is this delegate keyword. So as soon as we are putting this delegate keyword, now it has become a delegate definition. Okay, so this is the definition. The name of the delegate is print, and it can take one argument which is in the string format. Okay, so what kind of methods that we can invoke are like this. It has to be public. Okay, so it has to be void, and it can be with any name. It can be with any name, but having the same method signature as of this. See, so the method signatures have to be matched. The name can be anything. So it do not have any direct dependency on the name of the method. But whereas the method signature should be same for implementing the delegate invocation. Okay. So this is one example of a real method having the same string input as one parameter, and it is having some functionalities, multiple statements or some functionalities that you have implemented. Now, how to invoke this method through the delegate? How to invoke this real method through the delegate? So just see this example. The name of the method is going to be passed as the argument to this delegate. So what is the name of the delegate? Delegate name is print. So here you can see. So the name of the delegate that we can take here like a class. Okay, and in that we are simply passing the actual method name which is having the implementation. So this is how we can actually invoke the methods. And now what this print delegate is having is, it is simply having the reference of this real method. It is only having the reference of this real method, and automatically the real method is getting executed with this delegate invocation. So maybe somewhat complicated because it's not as part with the traditional programming that you normally aware of. आप लोगों में जितना भी किए होंगे तो ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड प्रोग्रामिंग जानते हो, तो क्लास को इंस्टेंशिएट करते हैं, उसको ऑब्जेक्ट बनाते हैं, देन यू हैव टू सिंपली इन्वोक द मेथड्स एंड प्रॉपर्टीज विद दैट ऑब्जेक्ट. ये जो फंडामेंटल ट्रेडिशनल प्रोग्रामिंग का थोड़ा हटके है, सो दैट्स व्हाई some typical separate kind of implementation is being seen here. So maybe it may be not that much easier for you to first of all identify and understanding, but on practice you will come to know, okay, this is the way it is actually getting invoked. Okay, so once again I'm repeating, we have to simply invoke the delegate. Here the name of the delegate is print. We are simply invoking this print and passing the parameter of the method name. So it can be dynamically sent, because as I have said, at the compile time you do not know whether this is real method 1 or it should be real method 2 or it should be some real method 50. At the compilation time you do not know, but whereas at runtime, based on some certain condition, you have to pick one of the method. So there the passing of this method name in the format of argument is going to be taken up for the delegate invocation. So in that way the real method is getting executed, but the actual executing is being done by the delegate, not the real method. Real method is only we are simply passing the address pointer of that method. Okay, got it? Because unless you do not understand the delegates, it will be difficult to understand the events. Anybody is having any doubt? As I have said, it may be tough to understand at first, but gradually after doing the practical, slowly you will come to know how it exactly behaving. Okay, so once you know the delegate concepts, on top of this delegate, we are going to write the events. Okay, so we will see that how to write these events and other things. But before that, let's some example. This also I have covered in the last lecture. The delegate method can take the object invocation. So this is an object. So as well as you can take the static method invocation also. Okay, so even though you are passing a real object method invocation, so this is a class, that particular class method is real method. You are invoking in the traditional OOPS way of doing, or simply you are passing with a static operator. Static means the class name is example class and that is defined as static. Okay, so this static class is having some methods. The name of the method is example method. So in that way also we can invoke. So that means using the delegates you can invoke the class instances or even the static class methods. Okay, so it's not tied to only the object invocation. You can simply invoke the objects, object methods, as well as you can simply invoke the static class methods also. So both are worked in the same manner. Then delegates and events. The second thing to note about the example is that all delegates can be constructed in this fashion to create a delegate instance which refers to a single method. So यहाँ तक एग्जाम्पल में हमने एक ही मेथड पास करके हमने चेक किया है. So that's why it is normal way of instantiating any particular object or method, invoking any object or method. But whereas sometimes we are having the requirement of simultaneously referring multiple methods. Simultaneously we want to refer multiple methods. So how to do that? So in the normal traditional programming, what you will do is, suppose you have some 15 methods, you will call M1 first, semicolon, in the normal languages, then M2 with braces, semicolon, M3. In this fashion only you have to write and they will be executed as per the given sequence. Okay, so in that way you have to write all the methods, at least 15 methods, so that all can be invoked simultaneously. But using the delegates, the invocation mechanism is pretty much simplified. Okay, so you can chain them, all these methods you can chain up, and they will be they can be called with a single delegate. So all these can be invoked with a single delegate, and we can see and understand with an example. Uh, and whenever we are doing that, it is called as multicast delegate. Okay, so multicast delegate means we are able to chain up some methods, and they can be sequentially or randomly getting invoked from our program. So that is what we call as multicast delegate. Otherwise, in this previous slide, we are doing a simple delegate invocation, which is not multicast delegate. Okay, so multicast delegate is generally used with the keyword event. So all the events are actually based on this multicast delegate. So that is the some priority point that you need to remember. All the multicast delegates are actually being taken for creating the events in the .NET framework. So that means whenever you are going to create an event, it should be a multicast delegate. Okay, so you are going to refer one method, which is a multicast delegate class. Actually, class you have to invoke from that class. So we will see the example of delegate here. So initially what I have done is I have declared one delegate with this name, and the method signature is, this is the return type, and this is the input parameters. The input parameters should be integer only. This is not SN, only integer. So 2 parameter 1 and parameter 2 with the data type of integer only acceptable, and the return type is also integer, and it should be having public access specifier. So this is the access specifier. Now a class is there with the name simple class, which is having the methods of first one is add and the second one is subtraction. These two methods are there, and you can see the method signatures are same as that of delegates. Okay, so both these methods, subtraction and addition methods, are having the same method signature. Okay, so there is no difference. Two input parameters with the integer data type, return type is again integer data type, access specifier is again public. So all these are matching. So that means now these methods, the method 1 and method 2, can be easily invoked by this delegate name as delegate sample. Okay, so this delegate sample we can use for invoking method 1 and as well as method 2. Let us see how we will do this. First of all, create the instance of this class. Okay, because this is not a static class, this is a normal class. So that's why the object sc is going to be created. Sample class, you can see the name of the sample class. The name of the class is sample class. And then what we are doing is runtime, we are sending this in. Suppose in this example it is actually hard coded. Okay, only to understand this example in a very clear manner. Otherwise you can dynamically send this information by some combo selection, some checkbox selection, or some like radio button selection. So in that way the user input will be taken into account. Accordingly this method is being referred into this delegate. So how to attach this delegate is, take the type of the delegate sample. See here, delegate sample is our name. Okay, so this delegate sample, delegate 1, is actually taken, and this is being attached with sc.add. sc.add means sc is the name of the object and add is the method. So this is the method name. Okay, so this method name we are attaching to this delegate, and see how we are invoking integer I is equal to not add of 1020. Now it is delegate 1 of 1020. It is delegate 1 of 1020 because the add is being transiently passed to this particular delegate. So that means it is behind the scenes, it is operating, but actual function or method is, we can see delegate name as the method or the function by replacing this add method. So this is how we can attach the methods to the delegates. So you can ask one question: what is the advantage of having this way? There is an advantage certainly when we are writing the events. Okay, and the advantages are many more. Not only the events, it will provide more security to your exposed method. Suppose you don't want to, you are a third party library creator. Okay, so this is the actual method that you are writing for your particular library, and you don't want to generally expose your method name, so that by using the obfuscators and other technologies, other techniques, people may scan your code and they may try to reverse engineering the code. So you can simply stop by putting the delegate method signature, whereas this sc.add is not at all visible. So nobody can see and understand what is the background implementer for this functionality. So the background implementer is add method, but delegate is being exposed. But when you see the code, there is no method with the name delegate1. So that's why anybody who wants to hack or who wants to see the internal working of your code, they may not be having any hint on this delegate1. So that is one more advantage. So many advantages are there. Okay, so these two are only some of the encapsulation and the event triggering mechanism, chaining up of events. Only some of the examples are these, but there are many advantages when you go for the delegates. Likewise, we have created one more delegate variable. This time we are attaching with the second method name sc.serve, and like with the earlier one, we are passing on with the information. So what it will do, 20 minus 10 will be done by, because this is a subtraction method that is referred inherently. So here the value will be saved as 10, but whereas here the value will be saved as 30, and it will be printed here in the console.write line. So this is the simple program that we can understand. But what is the thing to understand here is, we are actually calling the methods not by exact name of the method, but rather than we are subtly using the delegate names so that to invoke the corresponding method. On this delegates, on the basis of the delegates, we need to write the events. And now what are the events? So events are like, suppose there is a button, there is some triggering mechanism that is actually attached. So there is a button, the triggering mechanism is click. If there is a radio button, click. Okay, select. Okay, then drop down, select. Then text, the text changed. So these are the some predefined methods which are given for these objects by the .NET framework. Not only that, you can write your own triggering mechanisms also. And how to create this particular functionality? Okay, so for that we have the event keyword, which is based on the again delegate. Okay, see here, delegate is, this is the delegate, and this delegate is based on the .NET framework delegate. So this is delegate which is defined by the .NET framework. Okay, so this delegate was predefined. So all the event handlers are based on this event handler delegate. Okay, so you see here the keyword delegate, which is having the return type void, name of the delegate here, and the input parameters. Whenever there is any corresponding matching method signature, then all those methods can be invoked by using this delegate, like we have done with this previous example. Okay, so delegate definition is here. Based on that delegate, so this is the delegate name, we are creating one event. See here, this is the name of the delegate, event handler. You can see here, this event handler is being taken as the delegate type for creating an event with this name. The name of the event is click. Okay, so then you have to create a method protected or some access specifier which is matching with this public, that is optional, and void is the return type. Then on click, that can be any name, I can take my own name also, and event args I am passing. So whenever there is any corresponding method signature which is available, then I can invoke this method. So that is the basic understanding. Here you can see click is taking the this. This means object sender, and event arg is E. Event arg is E. So this click method is actually tied to this delegate, and this can be invoked using this event. It's very complex to understand. It's very complex to understand, but rather to implement by doing the coding only, at least we can come to know 80-90% of the how it is actually behaving. Okay, so in this example, 3 steps we have defined. This is the first step, event delegate declaration. Then event declaration is the second one. Then tying up of that event to any method. This is the third method. So this method is actually this method can be invoked in this way. Okay, so you can see new event handler as click is a method, click is a event actually. OK button is the button. To this button I am attaching one event handler, and I am passing this OK button click method. OK button click is the method you can see here, and which is compatible with this method signature, Okay, so then after clicking on this button, this message is being shown on the console. So this is how we can write our own triggering points in the program. So we will understand more on these events and delegates by some sample examples. Okay. Then C# and events. C# has built-in support for events, great for dealing with objects in an event-driven operating system. Improved performance and flexibility. Then it can register in a single event, or it can be used for multicasting also. So events are there for simple broadcasting as well as single casting also. That we will see in the example. Okay. So here is an example. This is the entire example. There is a form. This is for the Windows application. That's why you can see windows.forms namespace. So desktop applications that you will find on the Windows operating system. Whenever there is a button, you are going to write your own implementation. Okay, so this is a button, and this button is attached with one click event, and this particular click event is attached with the new event handler, and the passing method is handle click. So this is the handle click, which is actually being taken care of for the method invocation. So event handler is the delegate name, and handle click is the method name, and in that way you are writing your wiring of the things. This is called as wiring of the things. And this is one way of invoking the things. Second example here, there is a delegate which is defined here, my delegate, with this string input as the method signature, void string message. Then I can take my method as first method having the same method signature of this. Okay, so you can see and understand the method signature should be common to both these methods. So it doesn't matter whether it is a static method or object instantiation. Both are compatible. Now what I am doing is I am going to refer this my delegate, pass on the first method, and I am wiring up the things. So this is second way of doing the things. Okay. So call is first of all attached with the first method. Then call is subsequently chained up with the second method. So this is chained up with the second one. So this is the first method that we are referring, and this is the second method that we are referring. Then what we will do? We will call this delegate. See here, this is the name of the delegate. So call message A and message B. Now call is attached to this as well as this. Okay. So then, in your opinion, what should be the final output? Because call is assigned to both these methods, so that's why these two are getting executed with this first implementation as well as with the second implementation. You can try it out when you have in the labs or any other fine time. Okay, so this is how we can wire up the things. This is called as wiring up, and these particular terminologies are exclusively meant for the event creations. So in that way we can chain up the things. And similarly, if you are writing minus is equal to, this is dereferring the methods. So this is, we are actually chaining up the things, and this is chaining down the things. So once your requirement is over, you can chain down. So that's why we are removing one method from the list of the delegate invocations. Pretty complicated, I know. Things are complicated, but still you just know the concepts first. Then in the labs we can more we will try to understand more on this event and delegates. In this example, there is no keyword event here, but here this example is for the wiring up of the delegates. But here in this example, there is a click method. There is a click. Actually, this is an event. Actually, this has to be created. This has to be created. Where is that? In that way. Okay. So click. In that way, we can create. But as the click is here in this example, the click is actually defined by the .NET framework. So thereby we are not exclusively giving any event identifier to this click. So suppose in a simple example, there is a button class. Okay. So when you open this button class, obviously you will be finding some events, and most popular event is click, which is coming from the .NET framework. And suppose you are not interested in this method, you want to write a specific method, specific event trigger with some name like buzz. Okay, so buzz is the name of the method, but there is no default implementation in the .NET framework. Then how to write this particular event is, you have to first of all create the syntax in that way, then you can attach your own implementation, and at that time your code will be appearing button.buzz. Things will be looking like that. But here click is automatically coming because it is the default implementation for this button class. As button is the instantiation of this button class, so automatically you are getting this click. So here exclusively in this example, we have not created any event. But if you want to create any event, you have to take this format. This is the format to create the event. So this event keyword should be there, and the corresponding delegate you have to map. All these things we will try it out in the practical slots. Okay. So let's move ahead. So this is the example for only wiring up of the things for the delegate context. So this is one way of doing the multicasting delegate also without using the events. So different tactics are there to getting our code executed by referring our required methods. We are going to have the last topic of classes, and I don't think much explanation on these classes and methods and other things. Still, I will try to explain. So everything is encapsulated in a class. If you are working in an object-oriented compliant programming language, everything has to be encapsulated. You can have member data as well as member methods. So the data will be in the format of variables, properties, indexers. So all these are defined as member data. Okay. Then you can have some. Okay, I have taken both these, but only the first line is the data, and the second line is from the second line it is a method. So that's why it can have some method signatures or some functional implementation. So this is basically a class is normally having. And the .NET framework supports only single inheritance, but whereas it can support multiple interfaces we can implement, but multiple inheritance is not there, like in the case of the Java and other advanced programming languages. Why it is so? Multiple inheritance will be creating much confusion for the derived classes. So that's why most of the advanced programming languages do not have this feature. But to support in another way, we are having multiple interfacing. We are having multiple interfacing. Okay. Then classes can have constants, fields, methods, properties, indexers, events, operators, so many things it can have. It can have static and instance methods. Then it can have nested types, and yes, you will be exposing some of the code by using the access specifiers. The private is the most secure way of exposing your objects to the external programs. Internal is for your own assembly. Protected is for the inherited classes. Public is for all. So in that way, the accessibility is provided. Okay. So as these are very common in all the programming languages, I am not going into much details. Then structures are also there, but they are not created on the heap, but whereas they are created on the stack. So as it is stack implemented, assignments are generally copied, not the references are being, not the addresses are referred in the stack. And structs cannot have inheritance, and these are ideal for lightweight objects. And benefits are memory optimization can be done by using these structs. Okay, so if you are having some lightweight objects which you want to create for your code, then this should be the priority container for your code. So classes and structs. There are two examples that is given, and everybody I can understand that everybody can easily come to know what this particular code is saying. This is a class. C point is a class. Okay, so whenever it is created, you can see it is not created on the stack, but whereas it is being referred from a heap location. And struct is a S point is a struct. So whenever we are creating SP, it is basically creating on the stack. So this is stack, and the class is being created on the heap. So this is how we can understand. Classes provide templates from which objects and other things can be created. So you can read and understand. There is no much greater thing in this to explain. Then class 4 declarations, access modifiers. This I will explain. Accessibility is there. So by default, C# provides the private as the default accessibility. So private means when you are declaring any class as private, that class is not at all referred from outside the namespace. Okay. Or otherwise, if you are declaring a method as private, this method as private, it will not be accessible from the object invocation because it is private. Only for the internal operations of that particular class, you can have the code which you have written in some method. But whereas if you are writing with this public keyword, it is accessible to all. All means to the internal classes, internal assembly, then external libraries, external programs. Everybody can see this. Methods are the classes. Private is restricting the things. Protected is only the derived classes from that class can see the object or method invocations with that name. Then internal means it is for that entire assembly. It is for that entire assembly binary, or we can say for that entire internal classes or namespaces that can be accessible, but not for the external libraries. Protected internal means both the protected, that means as well as derived, as well as which are existing in the same assembly. So they can be seen. So ultimately, access specifiers are 5. First one is public, second one is private, third one is protected, then internal and protected internal. So these are the available access specifiers for the .NET framework. Okay, and not only that, we have the partial classes. Partial classes, what is the advantage of the partial class is you can define one class as partial class with this name, and somewhere in another file or in another namespace, you can have the same class name, and whenever you are writing this partial keyword before the class, then during the compilation, both will be taken as a single unit to create this particular class object. Okay, so that is the partial. So partial means you can split up the class into different things. So last 2 slides are there, which is having the abstract and sealed classes. Sealed classes are there in all the programming languages. Sealed means you cannot inherit from these, and that's why you cannot extend your functionality to the derived classes. But whereas abstract classes are there without having any method implementation. So basically they can have a common method signature, and you can define your abstract classes so that in the derived classes you can provide the implementation. So all these fundamentals are generally coming in the object-oriented programming. So you must be aware of all these topics. So that's why again and again we are not repeating the same things. We are only going to concentrate on the what are the different things from this .NET or C# point of view. So those things only we are actually concentrating. Okay.